Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
What if every second you hesitate was a piece of your future slipping through your fingers? What if procrastination wasn't just about waiting, but about quietly stealing the life you could have lived? And what if the secret to breaking free was simpler than you think? Every moment you wait is time you can never reclaim. Why allow hesitation to rob you of your dreams? Procrastination is more than a pause. It's a thief that drains your potential. But you can escape its grip by mastering decisive action, one step at a time. Imagine the power of finishing what you start, the momentum of progress carrying you forward. Will you keep watching time drift away, or claim your destiny now? In just moments, you'll uncover the secret to defeating procrastination and breaking free from hesitation. Taking decisive action transforms your life with unstoppable momentum. Procrastination steals far more than time. It is the silent assassin of dreams, the invisible hand that shackles ambition and traps you in mediocrity. You tell yourself tomorrow will be the day, or next week things will change. But time waits for no one. Why does procrastination hold such power? Because it's easy. It feels safe, and nothing seems safer than standing still. But comfort is the enemy of growth. Each delay is a choice for comfort over progress, and those choices accumulate until years pass by and the life you once imagined becomes a distant echo. Yet, there is a way out. Procrastination is a mindset, a mental habit that can be broken with consistent action. Begin with one task you've been avoiding. Write it down, look at it, and do it now, not tomorrow. Not later, but right now. Action is the only cure for delay. Action is the only weapon strong enough to defeat the beast of procrastination. Consider the story of Samuel Insull, the British-born American businessman who helped shape the electricity grid in the United States. Born in 1859, he came to America to work for Thomas Edison and built an empire through decisive action and relentless focus. Insull understood that time was his greatest asset, and he used it with precision. His success was never built on dreams alone, but on action. Now ask yourself, how much longer will you wait? How many dreams will you allow procrastination to steal? If not now, then when? If not you, then who? Every moment matters more than you realize. Time slips through our hands like invisible sand. Money can be saved, counted, or regained, but time leaves no trace. And yet, this currency, our seconds, minutes, and hours, holds a value greater than any wealth we can accumulate. Every passing moment is gone forever. You can earn more money, recover from failure, and rebuild what was lost, but you cannot reclaim a single second once it's gone. This truth should transform how we approach each day. Yet, so many live as if time were limitless. Andrew Carnegie knew better. Born into poverty in 1835, this Scottish immigrant grasped the value of time from an early age. While others wasted hours, he invested each one in building his future. By the age of 30, he had already become a formidable force in the steel industry. Carnegie's extraordinary rise from penniless immigrant to one of America's wealthiest men wasn't just about talent or circumstance. His success was the compound interest of how he invested his time. He saw what many overlooked. Time is the great equalizer. Regardless of wealth or status, every person receives the same 24 hours each day. The difference lies in how those hours are used. People who achieve remarkable success are not granted extra time. They simply extract maximum value from every moment. How would your life change if you treated each hour as priceless? Imagine living each day as if it were your last chance to move closer to your dreams. Procrastination loses its hold the moment you realize the clock is not just tracking your day, it is counting down your life. True wisdom comes from understanding that life is not measured in years, but in moments of presence. 1 hour of focused work, deep connection, or creative flow often adds more to your legacy than days wasted in distraction. Every moment matters, because together they form your life. How will you spend the currency of your remaining hours? The greatest lie isn't the one others tell you. It's the one you whisper to yourself each time you delay action. Procrastination rarely announces its arrival. Instead, it lures you in with comforting rationalizations that feel like wisdom but work like poison. I'll start tomorrow. I need more information first. I work better under pressure. The timing isn't right. These excuses sound reasonable, even responsible, yet they form a sophisticated architecture of self-sabotage. Long before external obstacles appear, this internal deception system quietly prevents achievement. It operates with precision because it targets your deepest vulnerabilities. It knows exactly when to offer relief from discomfort, when to disguise waiting as prudence, and when to convince you that hesitation is actually preparation. But history tells a different story. James J. Hill, born in 1838, transformed America's Northwest through sheer determination. He didn't wait for perfect economic conditions or government support to pursue his railway ambitions. While competitors sought subsidies and favorable circumstances, Hill pressed forward. He built the Great Northern Railway through difficult terrain, even when conventional wisdom advised patience. He understood a fundamental truth. Waiting is rarely about preparation. It's about fear disguised as prudence. Hill recognized that someday is where dreams quietly die, without the sting of failure, but also without the possibility of triumph. What separates achievers from dreamers is not talent or luck. It is their relationship with time and discomfort. True achievement demands facing the hard truth that starting is always harder than planning. The moment you begin, resistance, uncertainty, and self-doubt rush to the surface, but only then does progress become possible. To break free from procrastination's hypnotic grip, you must first recognize the language it speaks in your own life. What lies does it whisper to you? Which excuses have you mistaken for legitimate reasons? The procrastination that haunts a perfectionist differs from that of someone who fears failure, yet both are equally destructive. Try this simple exercise. Write down every reason you haven't started your most important project. Then challenge each one without mercy. Do you truly need more information? Or is research just a comfortable substitute for action? Do you really work better under pressure? Or have you never allowed yourself to feel the power of steady, consistent progress without artificial urgency? The answers will expose the familiar web of self-deception you've stopped questioning. The remedy begins with radical honesty. Procrastination isn't a work style or personality trait. It's a defense mechanism against discomfort. Once you see it for what it is, you can use countermeasures. Break tasks into smaller steps, create immediate consequences for inaction, or set up accountability that overrides inner resistance. The truth may frighten you, which means it's probably real. Think of procrastination as a hidden tax on your wealth and success. Your life has two columns: what you've accomplished and what you've postponed. We carefully track finances, yet rarely calculate the heavy cost of delay. The invisible fee we pay every time opportunity slips away while we remain in preparation mode. This toll doesn't come in dramatic ways, but through the quiet buildup of wasted potential. The investment account never opened. The business idea never launched. The skill never developed. The connection never made. Each one is not just a missed chance, but compound growth permanently lost. When you delay action by even a single day, you lose far more than 24 hours. You forfeit momentum, learning, and progress, the very forces that create exponential returns. This hidden mathematics of missed opportunity never shows up on financial statements, yet it shapes the ultimate balance of your success account more than any other factor. J. Gould, the controversial yet undeniably successful railroad magnate born in 1836, understood this principle instinctively. From humble beginnings, he recognized that hesitation was a luxury he could not afford. While others endlessly analyzed market conditions, Gould acted decisively, seizing opportunities in the railroad industry that the cautious overlooked. His strategy was not reckless, it was pragmatic. He knew that perfect information and ideal conditions exist only in theory. By the time consensus forms around an opportunity, the window for the greatest return has already closed. Gould's vast fortune, one of the largest of America's Gilded Age, was not built through superior resources, but through superior timing and the courage to act while others hesitated. The wealth-draining power of procrastination works through three primary mechanisms. And breaking this cycle begins with understanding that action itself is a form of capital, one that pays dividends in experience, feedback, and momentum. Even imperfect action creates value through learning, while flawless plans left unexecuted remain worthless. Measure the cost of delay by estimating the value lost through postponed decisions. What profit might that business idea have generated if launched last year? What salary increase could that certification have earned if completed 6 months ago? These calculations reveal the true price tag of procrastination and provide powerful motivation. Procrastination dissolves the moment you make a real decision. Not the half-hearted "I'll try," "I hope to," or "I plan to," but the kind of decision that eliminates all other options and leaves no room for retreat. True decision carries a finality that transforms your relationship with action. The word itself reveals its power, derived from the Latin root meaning to cut off. To decide is to sever alternative paths, focusing all your energy in one direction instead of scattering it across endless possibilities. This concentrated focus explains why decisive people accomplish what others only imagine. They may not be more talented or resourceful, but they reduce the internal friction that traps most people between contemplation and action. Herbert Hoover embodied this long before becoming America's 31st president. Born in 1874 and orphaned at 9, he could have surrendered to circumstance. Instead, Hoover made bold decisions that propelled him forward. As a mining engineer, he turned failing operations into profitable ventures with swift, clear choices while others hesitated. And during World War I, his decisive leadership through the Commission for Relief in Belgium saved millions from starvation. When conventional wisdom urged waiting for better conditions or more resources, Hoover acted immediately, creating solutions where others saw only impossible obstacles. He organized complex food delivery systems across war-torn regions, proving what psychology now confirms. Decisiveness creates momentum. Every firm choice strengthens your decision-making muscle, while indecision allows it to wither. The more you practice decisive action, the more natural it becomes, and the less control procrastination has over you. To harness this power, start with clarity in your decisions. Vague intentions lead to hesitation, but specific commitments demand action. Instead of saying, "I should exercise more," declare, "I will walk for 30 minutes every morning at 7 a.m. starting tomorrow." That kind of specificity creates accountability and eliminates the decision fatigue that fuels procrastination. Next, establish consequences for your choices. When Cortez burned his ships upon reaching the New World, he removed retreat as an option. You can do the same by creating conditions where follow-through is easier than quitting, paying for a year-long gym membership, sharing your goals publicly, or forming accountability partnerships. Most importantly, practice decisiveness in small matters to build capacity for greater ones. Decision-making is a skill that strengthens with use. Start with simple choices: what to wear, where to eat, which task to do first, and make them quickly without second-guessing. This practice builds neural pathways that make decisive action your default. And when procrastination tempts you, remember this truth: indecision is a decision, the decision to stay exactly where you are. Every moment spent hesitating is a vote for the status quo and against your potential. Willpower is not a gift you're born with. It's a capacity built through deliberate practice. The false belief that some people naturally possess extraordinary discipline, while others simply don't, has stopped countless individuals from developing this vital skill. This fixed mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe willpower cannot change, it remains undeveloped. Yet science confirms what history's achievers have always known. Willpower functions like a muscle, growing stronger with use and weakening with neglect. Neurologically, each act of self-discipline reinforces neural pathways, making the next act easier. What begins as immense effort eventually becomes second nature through this biological transformation. George Westinghouse exemplified this progressive strengthening of willpower throughout his extraordinary career. Born in 1846, Westinghouse began cultivating discipline in his father's agricultural machinery shop before serving in the Civil War. Each challenge he faced, creating a safer railroad braking system, revolutionizing the electrical industry, built on earlier reserves of determination. When he championed alternating current, AC, against Thomas Edison's direct current, DC, he faced not only technical hurdles, but also a powerful opponent willing to publicly electrocute animals to discredit AC power. Many would have abandoned the fight, but Westinghouse's strengthened willpower enabled him to endure financial strain and relentless attacks during this war of currents. His ultimate victory was not just technological, It was the result of willpower consistently applied across decades. The electrical system that powers our modern world exists because one man's discipline and persistence outlasted another's opposition. The transformation of your own willpower begins with understanding its progressive nature. Start with challenges just beyond your current capacity. Choose tasks difficult enough to require effort, but achievable enough to build confidence. The domain matters less than the consistent practice of choosing long-term benefit over short-term comfort. Begin each morning with a small act of discipline. Make your bed, complete a short workout, or dedicate 15 minutes to your most important project before checking messages. These seemingly minor actions create momentum that carries into larger challenges throughout the day. Track your willpower wins, however small. A visible record of growing discipline becomes powerful motivation during times of resistance. And remember, willpower depletion is only temporary. Research shows that simply believing your willpower is unlimited expands your capacity for sustained effort. Strategic rest enhances willpower rather than diminishes it. Schedule short recovery periods between demanding tasks, much like elite athletes rest between training sessions. This prevents burnout, which so often disguises itself as permanent willpower failure. Most importantly, connect your discipline to a deeper meaning. Westinghouse wasn't just selling electrical systems. He envisioned transforming human potential through accessible energy. When willpower serves something greater than momentary comfort, its capacity grows exponentially. How does procrastination disguise itself as safety? Its most dangerous mask is the illusion of prudent caution. It whispers that delay is wisdom, that by waiting you are gathering information, reducing risk, and protecting yourself from failure. This deception turns procrastination from a recognized weakness into what feels like a virtue. Yet the safety it promises is false. Instead of shielding you from harm, it guarantees damage through lost opportunities, stagnant skills, and wasted potential. The comfort it provides is temporary and hollow, like an anesthetic that numbs the pain while the condition beneath worsens. William Mulholland's transformation of Los Angeles through water infrastructure demonstrates the danger of this false security. Born in 1855, Mulholland rose from ditch digger to self-taught engineer through persistent action while others hesitated. When Los Angeles faced devastating water shortages in the early 1900s, he envisioned and built the 233-mile Los Angeles Aqueduct. A project so vast that many experts declared it impossible. If Mulholland had surrendered to the illusion of safety, waiting for perfect conditions, complete information, or universal approval, Los Angeles might never have become the thriving metropolis it is today. He understood that the greater risk was not in taking action, but in delaying it. While caution suggested that a self-taught engineer should never attempt such an ambitious project, Mulholland knew that true safety came from confronting the city's water crisis directly, not avoiding it. The illusion of safety thrives on cognitive distortions that feel rational in the moment. When we delay hard conversations, challenging projects, or major life changes, we convince ourselves we're being prudent, gathering more preparation, or waiting for the perfect time. Yet the mind rarely admits the greater danger of inaction. To break procrastination's false safety spell, you must learn to recognize its language. Excuses like, "I just need to do more research," "I'm not ready yet," or "the timing isn't right," usually hide fear rather than true preparation. Test these justifications by asking yourself, would I give this same advice to someone I care about? The answer often reveals procrastination's deception. The antidote lies in reframing action as the real safety mechanism. Starting imperfectly provides feedback that fuels improvement, while waiting for perfection blocks the very learning required for success. In fact, those who act while still unprepared usually gain competence faster than those who wait to feel fully ready. So ask yourself honestly, what opportunities am I sacrificing for the illusion of safety? What skills remain undeveloped? What relationships never formed? What contributions left undone because I mistook comfort for security? The greatest risk isn't failure. It's the slow erosion of potential through constant delay. True safety doesn't come from avoiding challenges, but from developing the strength to face them effectively. Like Mulholland, who transformed a city through water when others saw only obstacles. Your greatest security lies in the very actions procrastination disguised as safety would prevent. And here's the secret. Monumental achievements rarely begin with monumental actions. They almost always start small, simple, unremarkable steps that seem insignificant on their own. This counterintuitive truth explains why so many never reach their goals. Instead of embracing the power of modest beginnings, they wait for a dramatic opportunity. The gap between present reality and ambitious dreams creates mental tension, triggering procrastination. The mind chooses the comfort of planning big ventures someday over the discomfort of taking small, imperfect steps today. We tell ourselves we'll start when conditions improve, when resources arrive, or when confidence appears. In doing so, we surrender progress to circumstances beyond our control. But Edwin C. Barnes' story reveals the transformative power of starting small without guarantees. Born in 1870 with no connections, no wealth, and no advantages, Barnes set his sights on partnering with America's great inventor, Thomas Edison. Instead of waiting until he had credentials, he simply showed up at Edison's laboratory. His first position was menial, far from the partnership he envisioned. Many would have dismissed such a humble beginning as beneath them, but Barnes saw it differently. It wasn't his destination, it was his entry point. From that modest role, he worked tirelessly, absorbed everything about Edison's business, and slowly made himself indispensable. In time, Barnes became Edison's exclusive marketer for the Ediphone dictation machine, transforming both of their fortunes. His success didn't come from starting big, it came from starting at all, then building methodically on that foundation. The science behind starting small supports this truth. Research on habit formation shows that tiny actions bypass the brain's natural resistance. When we commit to steps so small they seem almost trivial, reading one page instead of a chapter, doing one push-up instead of 20, writing one paragraph instead of an essay, we dissolve the psychological barriers that stop us from beginning. These micro-commitments create momentum that naturally expands. The writer who promises one sentence often ends up with a full paragraph. The entrepreneur who makes one sales call usually continues to the second and third. Starting small doesn't mean staying small. It means sparking the initial movement that breaks inertia. This approach also speeds up learning through rapid feedback cycles. By taking small actions daily instead of occasional big ones, you collect more data on what works. Each small step becomes a learning opportunity that sharpens your strategy, steadily increasing efficiency and effectiveness. To apply this principle, start by identifying the smallest possible action that moves you toward your goal. For a business, it might be making just one sales call a day. The step should be so modest it feels almost impossible to refuse. Then create triggers, a set time, place, or preceding task that automatically signal it's time to act. This kind of environmental design removes the need for constant willpower or decision-making, further lowering resistance. Track your small actions visually, building a chain of consistency that becomes harder and harder to break. Even when tangible results seem distant, this visible progress gives immediate psychological reinforcement. This is how consistency turns time into your ally. Time moves with perfect equality, giving every person the same 24 hours a day regardless of wealth, status, or ambition. Yet while some turn these hours into extraordinary achievements, others struggle to make even modest progress. The difference is not in the hours themselves, but in how consistently they're used. Consistency transforms time from a neutral force into a powerful multiplier, working much like compound interest. Just as money grows when interest builds on itself, consistent actions generate results that produce accelerating returns. This compounding effect explains why success often appears to arrive suddenly after long periods of apparent stagnation. Few embodied this principle more clearly than Hetty Green, the remarkable financier born in 1834, who became America's wealthiest woman while thriving in the male-dominated world of 19th century finance. Nicknamed the Witch of Wall Street for her austere habits and unconventional methods, Hetty Green built her fortune not through spectacular bets, but through the steady application of sound principles over decades. While others chased dramatic market swings and speculative gains, she remained unwaveringly consistent. She invested methodically during downturns when others panicked. She relied on thorough research instead of rumors. She kept cash reserves while competitors overextended. None of these choices seemed remarkable on their own, but repeated over 50 years, they transformed modest wealth into a fortune of more than $100 million. Green's success reveals the hidden power of consistency. It doesn't just accumulate results, it changes possibilities entirely. Because of her steady approach, she had capital ready during panics when assets were undervalued, creating opportunities inaccessible to less disciplined investors. Her reliability also made her a trusted lender when credit markets froze. Consistency didn't only grow her wealth, it created unique advantages that erratic competitors could never match. Science confirms this principle. Repeated actions build neural pathways that grow more efficient with use. What begins as conscious effort eventually becomes automatic, reducing the energy needed for continued performance. This explains why those who sustain consistent habits often find them easier than those who don't. Their brains literally restructure to support the pattern. Yet harnessing consistency requires accepting its paradox. The rewards are extraordinary, but the actions that create them often look ordinary, even disappointing, to those craving instant results. This gap between unremarkable daily inputs and remarkable long-term results creates a motivational challenge that derails most attempts at consistency. The solution is to use commitment devices that keep you on track even when motivation fluctuates. These include accountability partners, habit tracking systems, environmental adjustments, or identity-based commitments that frame consistency as part of who you are rather than just what you do. Choosing the right consistency targets is just as important. The compounding effect works equally for positive and negative patterns. Consistent learning compounds into expertise, while consistent complaining compounds into negativity. Whatever you repeat, consistency will amplify, so choose carefully. Begin with a single daily action, so modest it feels almost too easy to skip. This minimum level of consistency forms the foundation for greater patterns. Track your actions visually, creating a feedback loop that makes progress tangible and motivating. Taking back your time and focus is critical in an age of constant distraction. While each of us receives the same 24 hours, the true quality of those hours is determined by our ability to focus. In today's world, designed to fragment attention, those who fail to protect their focus inevitably surrender their most valuable asset. Cyrus McCormick demonstrated the transformative power of focus in the 1830s. Born in 1809, he didn't invent the mechanical reaper in a moment of convenience. It was built in the midst of constant interruption. Instead of scattering his efforts across multiple ideas, McCormick carved out dedicated periods of uninterrupted thought and experimentation in his Virginia workshop. While others chased countless possibilities, he focused relentlessly on solving one critical problem: how to mechanize grain harvesting. That singular focus enabled him to perfect the reaper, a machine that revolutionized agriculture and dramatically expanded global food production. His breakthrough wasn't born of superior intelligence, but of superior attention, directing all cognitive resources toward one challenge instead of dispersing them across many. Reclaiming your focus begins with understanding its true value. Most people underestimate the real cost of distraction. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to regain deep focus after an interruption. This is why you need a strategy to protect your attention, starting with your environment. Create a dedicated workspace that signals to your brain it's time for serious work. Schedule focus blocks of at least 90 minutes, the minimum required for meaningful cognitive momentum. Guard these sessions with the same commitment you would give to critical meetings. Language matters here. You're not finding time to focus. You're allocating your most valuable resource to your highest priorities. And because interruptions are inevitable, build a response system. Instead of surrendering your attention, make a quick note of the distraction and promise yourself a specific time to address it later. This capture and defer method prevents distractions from draining your mental energy while ensuring important matters aren't ignored. Most importantly, you must train your attention like a muscle. Just as physical strength fades without exercise, focus deteriorates without consistent practice. Start with sessions that match your current capacity, maybe just 25 minutes, and gradually extend them as your mental endurance grows. Track your focus with the same diligence a business tracks financial performance. How many hours of true, deep work did you achieve today? What percentage of your workday was spent fully attentive? Measuring these metrics creates accountability for this otherwise invisible resource. And remember, waiting is the enemy of greatness. One of the most persistent illusions in human psychology is the belief that the perfect moment is just around the corner. This waiting mindset, the idea that conditions will somehow align in the future, becomes the silent architect of wasted potential. It turns temporary pauses into permanent stagnation, all while maintaining the illusion that great achievements are still possible. This paralysis comes from a false belief about how greatness is born, that it requires ideal circumstances, abundant resources, complete information, perfect timing, and absolute confidence. History shows the opposite of what many believe. Greatness consistently comes from those who act decisively amid imperfect, and often hostile, conditions. Andrew Mellon embodied this philosophy throughout his extraordinary career. Born in 1855, he built one of America's greatest fortunes not by waiting for stability, but by acting boldly during times of maximum uncertainty. When others retreated in financial panics, Mellon advanced. When conventional wisdom urged caution, he moved with conviction. His role in building Alcoa reflects this mindset. At a time when aluminum production was seen as prohibitively expensive, Mellon invested heavily before the technical challenges were fully solved, while others waited for proven markets. Mellon created those markets. His banking ventures followed the same pattern, extending credit during tight money conditions when others pulled back, spotting opportunities most dismissed as premature. His billions were not the result of perfect timing, but of a relentless willingness to act while others hesitated. The waiting mindset creates a destructive kind of opportunity blindness. While you wait for perfect conditions to pursue your main goal, nearby opportunities, often more valuable than the original dream, slip by unnoticed. Waiting is not just an action. It is a psychological state that narrows your vision and blinds you to possibilities. The waiting mind fixates on specific, perfect conditions and misses unexpected possibilities. Mellon's greatest acquisitions weren't targets he set in advance. They were opportunities he recognized while actively engaged. Breaking the habit begins by facing its core deception. Perfect conditions don't arrive, they're created through action. The entrepreneur who waits for market validation learns it only appears after launch. The writer who waits for inspiration discovers that momentum produces it. Why not move first and let clarity follow? Build accountability that makes waiting more uncomfortable than acting. Use public commitments, financial stakes, or partnerships that depend on your progress, so delay carries real consequences. Run a worst-case analysis whenever you're tempted to stall. Calculate the maximum downside of acting now versus waiting longer. You'll usually find the risks of action are manageable, while the costs of delay are far higher than you admit. Adopt ready enough as your threshold. Define the minimum viable preparation that allows you to begin, then move the moment you reach it. This ends the endless quest for more readiness. How do you create your own deadlines? Bridge the gap between intention and achievement with firm, visible due dates, reinforced by public commitments, financial stakes, or partner dependencies, so the comfort of waiting is no longer an option. When tempted to delay, run a worst-case analysis. Compare the potential downside of acting now with the cost of continued waiting. You'll often find the risks of action are far more manageable than imagined, while the costs of delay are far greater than admitted. One of the most effective tools is adopting ready enough as your action threshold. Define the minimum preparation needed to begin, then commit once you reach it. This prevents the endless pursuit of perfection that fuels chronic waiting. So how do you close the gap between intention and accomplishment? With one powerful tool, the deadline. Without a clear boundary in time, even the strongest ambitions remain stuck in endless preparation and perfection seeking. Deadlines transform the abstract into the concrete. They turn vague goals into time-bound commitments that demand specific action. Their true power lies not in the date itself, but in how they reshape your relationship with a project, creating urgency, sharpening focus, and demanding resolution. Joseph Pulitzer understood this well while building his newspaper empire in the late 19th century. Born in 1847, he revolutionized journalism not only through editorial innovation, but also through strict deadline discipline. In a business where timeliness determined relevance, Pulitzer enforced unmovable deadlines across his entire organization. From reporters gathering stories, to editors finalizing copy, to presses rolling. Pulitzer built a culture driven by deadlines. While competitors debated whether their stories were perfect, his newspapers were already in the hands of readers. His success proved that consistently meeting good deadlines beats endlessly chasing perfection. A paper delivering 90% of the story today will always outperform one offering 100% tomorrow. This principle extends beyond journalism to any field where completion creates value. A business launched imperfectly today begins generating revenue and feedback immediately, while the perfectly planned business that never starts remains worthless in practice. Creating effective personal deadlines requires understanding their psychology. Self-imposed deadlines lack the external weight of those set by others, making them easy to renegotiate. The solution is to manufacture consequences that make sticking to a deadline easier than breaking it. Share your deadlines publicly with people whose opinions you respect, triggering the powerful effect of social accountability. Research shows public commitments are far more likely to be honored than private ones, because we naturally avoid appearing inconsistent in the eyes of others. You can also add financial stakes, pre-committing money that becomes a reward if you succeed or a penalty if you fail. At its core, procrastination isn't just a time management issue. It's a mindset, a way of relating to tasks, discomfort, and the future. That's why traditional productivity tactics often fall short. Most productivity tactics only treat the symptoms, not the mindset that drives procrastination. The real difference between chronic procrastinators and those who act promptly isn't in schedules, willpower, or organizational systems. It lies in their core assumptions about work, ability, comfort, and purpose. When these assumptions shift, behavior transforms naturally, without the exhausting self-coercion that comes with short-lived productivity hacks. Henry Flagler's life is a powerful example of how a mindset shift can unlock extraordinary achievement. Born in 1830, Flagler first rose to success as John D. Rockefeller's partner in Standard Oil, accumulating a fortune that would have satisfied most ambitions. Yet at 60, an age when many consider retirement, Flagler experienced a profound mental reframing that sparked his greatest accomplishments. Visiting Florida for his wife's health, he saw what others overlooked. He didn't just notice undeveloped coastline, he envisioned an American Riviera. This required seeing himself not as a businessman ending a career, but as a visionary empire builder beginning his most important work. That shift demolished the procrastination often tied to late career comfort. Over the next 3 decades, Flagler built luxury hotels, established entire cities, and completed the seemingly impossible Florida East Coast Railway to Key West, an engineering marvel stretching 156 miles over open ocean. His achievements didn't come from superior resources, but from a transformed mindset that made procrastination incompatible with his identity. The mindset shift that destroys procrastination begins with recognizing what it really is, a frame that interprets tasks as burdens to avoid instead of opportunities to seize. This perspective isn't fixed reality. It's a construct that can be deliberately reshaped. Start by examining the language you use around procrastinated tasks. Notice phrases like have to, should, or need to. They imply external pressure rather than personal choice. Replace them with choose to, get to, or want to. This small linguistic shift restores your agency and reframes obligations as opportunities. Next, confront the perfectionism that feeds procrastination. The procrastination mindset insists that work must be flawless to be worthwhile. The action mindset knows imperfect effort creates far more value than perfect planning. Make good enough to start your standard rather than good enough to finish. Perhaps most powerful is moving from outcome orientation to process orientation. Procrastination thrives when all focus is on end results, making the first step feel overwhelming. The action mindset finds value in the process itself, the learning, growth, and engagement that occur no matter the outcome. Adopt identity-based motivation by asking not, what should I do, but who am I becoming? Flagler didn't just build hotels, he became Florida's developer. When you see action as part of your identity, consistency flows from integrity rather than discipline. You act not because you should, but because it defines who you are. Put this into practice with small, deliberate mindset interventions before tackling a task you tend to delay. Identify the limiting frame, then consciously adopt the empowering one. With repetition, this new framework becomes automatic. And remember, action always beats perfection. The pursuit of flawless execution has silently destroyed more dreams than any external obstacle ever could. The pursuit of flawless execution, perfect timing, and complete preparation often becomes an invisible barrier between intention and achievement. Perfectionism may masquerade as quality control, but in reality, it is usually risk avoidance disguised as excellence. Imperfect action, on the other hand, creates momentum, something perfectionism endlessly postpones. That's why those who act consistently, even imperfectly, achieve more than those who plan perfectly but rarely act. The perfectionist remains stuck in preparation mode, while the action taker gains experience, feedback, and results that accelerate progress. Richard Arkwright embodied this action-oriented mindset during the early Industrial Revolution. Born in 1732 to humble beginnings, he had little formal education or technical training when he began experimenting with spinning machinery. His early designs were imperfect, inefficient, prone to breakdowns, and in constant need of adjustment. Had Arkwright waited for perfection, the mechanized textile industry might have been delayed by decades. Instead, he deployed his flawed machines, studied their performance, gathered feedback, and made continuous improvements. This iterative approach led to the creation of the world's first water-powered cotton spinning mill in 1771, a breakthrough that transformed textile production from small workshops into an industrial powerhouse. Arkwright's immense fortune didn't come from superior intellect or vast resources, but from his willingness to act while others only theorized. Arkwright's competitors often had more technical knowledge, yet they stayed stuck in endless refinement. Meanwhile, his imperfect but operating mills generated both revenue and practical insights, advantages unavailable to those who never moved past planning. The principle of action over perfection works through several key mechanisms. First, action generates feedback that planning never can. Only by implementing ideas do you discover their real, not theoretical, weaknesses. Second, action builds momentum that breaks through initial resistance. Third, action develops skills that preparation alone can never cultivate. Modern research confirms what Arkwright proved by instinct. Studies on skill acquisition show that those who produce larger volumes of work, even if uneven in quality, outperform those who focus only on a few perfected pieces. In one study, pottery students who made 50 pots learned far more than those striving to craft just 5 flawless ones. Applying the action beats perfection principle starts with calibrating standards to each phase of a project. In the early stages, aim for good enough to test, not good enough to launch. This lower bar reduces the paralyzing pressure of perfection while keeping progress alive. Next, define minimum viable actions, the smallest steps that move a project forward. For a writer, it might be 50 words. For an entrepreneur, a single sales call. For fitness, just 5 minutes of exercise. These micro steps bypass the overwhelm that fuels procrastination. Most importantly, redefine success itself. Stop equating it with flawless execution and start valuing meaningful learning. This perspective turns imperfection into feedback and transforms action into a necessity for growth. Support it with artificial deadlines that push you toward imperfect but essential progress. When a graphic designer has 4 hours instead of 4 weeks, perfectionism becomes impossible. Yet the work still meets functional needs, despite its flaws. These constraints reveal that perfectionism often serves psychological comfort more than practical value. One decision, however, can change your entire life. Our paths rarely shift through gradual evolution. Transformation usually happens at pivotal decision points, moments when choosing one direction over another triggers cascading consequences that permanently alter your future. These turning points act like switches on a railroad track, sending your journey toward destinations that would otherwise remain unreachable. This nonlinear relationship between decisions and outcomes explains why small choices can produce massive, lasting effects. A single decision to move to a new city, pursue higher education, start a business, or end a relationship can create butterfly effects that ripple across decades. Recognizing this amplification effect turns decision-making from a routine task into one of life's most consequential skills. John Wanamaker's story illustrates this truth vividly. Born in 1838 to modest circumstances, he made a series of pivotal decisions that transformed his life and reshaped American retail. His first came at 23, when he left secure employment to open a small clothing store in Philadelphia, despite limited capital and the deep uncertainty that followed the Civil War. That first choice, embracing entrepreneurial risk over job security, changed Wanamaker's entire trajectory. Had he stayed and sought promotion, American retail might look very different today. Instead, that decision laid the foundation for the nation's first department store. His next pivotal move was buying an abandoned railroad freight depot to expand, a ridiculed, counterintuitive step. By creating a single, large store with fixed prices, money-back guarantees, and unprecedented amenities, he defied the retail rules of his era. The results made him one of America's wealthiest men, a pioneer of modern advertising, and eventually U.S. Postmaster General. His life shows how specific decision points become gateways to entirely new paths once invisible. Why are decisions so transformative? Neurologically, commitment shifts cognitive resources from deliberation to implementation. Psychologically, decisions shape identity, creating reinforcing loops that make aligned choices easier. Practically, decisions cut off alternatives, focusing energy once scattered across options. To harness this power, identify high-leverage choices with asymmetric upside, skills, relationships, habits, and investments that compound over time. Choose to learn a discipline, invest consistently, build a network, or adopt a keystone habit. Returns can far exceed the initial effort. For these high-stakes calls, use a decision quality protocol. Pause the reactive impulse, weigh options, consider long-term consequences, and check alignment with core values before you act. This doesn't require overthinking. It's about ensuring decisions arise from clear priorities, not fleeting circumstances. Most important is developing decisive closure, the ability to fully commit once a choice is made. That means setting concrete next steps immediately, creating momentum that blocks the paralysis of second-guessing. Wanamaker didn't just decide to open a store. He quickly secured a location, inventory, and financing, making reversal harder with each move. Who you become 5 years from now will depend largely on the few significant decisions you make today. So choose carefully, commit fully, and remember, the most dangerous decision is letting key choices be made by default rather than design. This brings us to mental mastery and how it ends procrastination. Procrastination isn't really a time management problem. It's a failure of mind management. That distinction explains why traditional productivity tools, calendars, reminders, and systems often provide only temporary relief. Until you address the mental patterns fueling procrastination, external solutions merely treat symptoms while the deeper dysfunction continues. The procrastinating mind follows predictable patterns. It magnifies the discomfort of starting, downplays the cost of delay, and overestimates future willpower. These aren't character flaws, but automatic processes that, if left unchecked, sabotage intentional action. Andrew Carnegie's rise from poor immigrant to industrial titan shows the decisive edge that comes from mastering the mind. Born in 1835 to destitute Scottish weavers, Carnegie arrived in America at 13 with little education, no connections, and overwhelming poverty. What set him apart wasn't privilege, but mental discipline. He trained himself to resist procrastination's common traps. When opportunity appeared in the telegraph industry, he acted immediately despite his youth and inexperience. During the railroad boom, while others hesitated, he advanced. When steel showed promise, he redirected his resources without the paralysis of overthinking. His mastery was clearest in his ability to start difficult tasks right away instead of postponing them. In his personal writings, Carnegie often emphasized that the first hour is the rudder of the day. He built routines that forced his mind to engage with priority work before distractions could take over. This was a 19th century version of what modern psychology calls strategic automaticity. Today, neuroscience validates what Carnegie practiced intuitively. Brain imaging shows that procrastination triggers the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, whenever we face challenging tasks. This limbic trigger pushes the brain to seek instant relief through delay. Mental mastery strengthens the prefrontal cortex to override this automatic avoidance, not through raw willpower, but through deliberate cognitive restructuring. It begins with meta-awareness, the skill of observing your thoughts without becoming them. When procrastination urges arise, create distance by labeling them objectively. I notice I'm having the thought that I should check emails before starting this project. That simple shift interrupts the automatic pattern and opens space for conscious choice. Ultimately, mastery comes from aligning identity with action, not delay. Carnegie didn't just complete tasks. He saw himself as a man of decisive action. This identity-based motivation created an intrinsic drive that made procrastination incompatible with his self-concept. The truth is simple. The master of the mind becomes the master of achievement. And here's a crucial insight. Action doesn't wait for motivation. It creates it. One of the most persistent myths is believing you must feel inspired before you begin. That mindset traps you in a cycle of waiting. The psychological reality is the opposite. Taking action generates motivation. That's why starting always feels hardest. But once momentum builds, it becomes self-sustaining. Neurologically, action triggers dopamine that boosts focus and drive. Psychologically, progress satisfies the need for competence, sparking positive emotions that encourage persistence. Practically, each step forward brings clarity, replacing uncertainty, the very fuel of procrastination, with direction. Few figures illustrate the principle of action creating momentum better than J.P. Morgan. Born in 1837, he built a financial empire not through sudden inspiration, but through a series of cascading actions, each fueling the next. The pattern began early. His first experiences in banking opened doors to partnerships that would never have appeared without that initial step. From banking, Morgan expanded into railroads, then into steel, electricity, and beyond, showing how progress in one area often sparks unexpected opportunities in others. His early work restructuring troubled railroads gave him insights and connections that later enabled his pivotal role in creating General Electric and U.S. Steel. Had he waited for complete knowledge of these industries before acting, most of those opportunities would have disappeared before he was ready. The Panic of 1907 showcased this principle most clearly. By then, decades of decisive action, deals struck, crises managed, relationships built, had given Morgan the authority and experience to coordinate a massive financial response that prevented economic collapse. Such intervention wasn't possible for those who spent years merely studying banking instead of engaging in it. Modern behavioral science now calls this process success spirals. Achievement sequences where small wins build confidence and capacity, paving the way for greater accomplishments. Success spirals work through both internal mechanisms and external pathways. Applying this principle starts with lowering the threshold for action, choosing steps so small they bypass the brain's resistance. Write one paragraph instead of an entire report, make one sales call instead of 10, or exercise for 5 minutes instead of an hour. These micro-actions cut through the overwhelm that blocks initiation. Next, create immediate feedback systems that make progress visible. Motivation thrives when movement is recognized. Yet many big projects give only delayed or unclear results. The solution is to build artificial markers, track words written, calls completed, or problems solved. These provide tangible proof of advancement even before external results appear. Just as important is setting action triggers that remove decision fatigue and keep momentum alive. Place a notebook on the breakfast table to spark writing. Keep running shoes by the bed to start exercising. Prepare a client list the night before so calls begin the moment you arrive at work. Remember, momentum doesn't exist before you act. It is created by action itself. The choice isn't between moving with momentum or without it. It's between creating momentum through small steps or staying still, waiting for motivation that never comes. Every next action, however small, carries the seed of all future achievement. Time punishes the hesitant. It moves with perfect fairness, granting every person the same 24 hours each day, yet with total indifference to how those hours are spent. This impartiality creates an unforgiving arithmetic. Everyone receives the same allotment, but the outcomes diverge dramatically. The rewards of time invested wisely vary greatly, while hesitation carries the highest cost. The penalty isn't just delay, it's permanent opportunity loss. Markets evolve, circumstances shift, and competitors secure positions while the hesitant remain trapped in deliberation. This is why two people starting from nearly identical points can end up with radically different outcomes. Those who act decisively compound advantages the hesitant can never reclaim. Cornelius Vanderbilt embodied this truth throughout his extraordinary rise from Staten Island ferry operator to railroad magnate. Born in 1794 with no inherited wealth or powerful connections, he built America's largest fortune through decisive action. When steamboats emerged, Vanderbilt quickly abandoned sailing vessels. Even after mastering that craft, he pivoted again when railroads began replacing water transport, reallocating his resources while competitors clung to the old model. Vanderbilt's defining strength wasn't superior intelligence or privileged information. It was his capacity for immediate action when opportunity appeared. During the California Gold Rush, while others argued over the best route, he swiftly established a steamship line through Nicaragua, gaining an advantage competitors could never recover. His purchase of the struggling New York and Harlem Railroad showed the same timing instinct. He secured assets on favorable terms while others hesitated. The penalty of hesitation operates in several ways. Opportunities close permanently or conditions worsen during indecision. Decisive rivals secure positions that are hard to dislodge, and the hesitant miss critical feedback that would guide better choices. In today's world, these penalties are magnified. Technology compresses opportunity cycles from years to months, or even weeks. Globalization ensures that if you hesitate, someone else will seize the chance. Digital networks allow advantages to scale at lightning speed, creating winner-take-most dynamics that punish delay exponentially. The first step to overcoming hesitation is recognizing its true cost. It doesn't just postpone success, it can erase the opportunity forever. To counter this, create decision thresholds that trigger automatic action once you have sufficient clarity. Vanderbilt didn't wait for certainty. He acted as soon as the direction was clear. Create accountability systems that make hesitation more uncomfortable than action. Public commitments, financial stakes, or partnerships that rely on your progress establish consequences strong enough to outweigh the temporary comfort of delay. Just as important, embrace rapid prototyping. Testing opportunities quickly instead of getting trapped in endless analysis. Small, fast experiments yield far more useful insights than prolonged theoretical evaluation, while still preserving the timing advantage that leads to success. Ask yourself, what opportunity in front of me will vanish if I don't act now? What advantage, if secured today, could multiply in value over time? What knowledge or feedback can only be gained through immediate action? Designing a life free from procrastination requires more than productivity hacks. It demands intentional structure. Most people try to fight procrastination while living in environments that actually encourage it. Constant distractions, unclear priorities, and no systems of accountability. That's why willpower alone often fails. Even the strongest determination cannot overcome a system built to sabotage progress. The real solution is creating environments, routines, and mindsets where procrastination becomes harder than taking action. This systematic approach reframes procrastination from a personal weakness into an engineering problem, one solved through intentional design rather than constant struggle. Henry Leland embodied this design-based philosophy throughout his extraordinary career. Born in 1843, he set manufacturing standards that reshaped American industry and went on to found both Cadillac and Lincoln Motor Company. His success didn't come from bursts of inspiration, but from carefully built systems that guaranteed consistent execution regardless of fleeting motivation. Leland's factories reflected his belief that environment shapes behavior. He organized workspaces to cut out wasted motion, created specialized tools that standardized quality, and introduced inspection systems that built instant accountability. These elements didn't just boost efficiency, they made precision manufacturing inevitable rather than optional. His personal routines mirrored this same intentionality. Each morning began with clearly defined priorities. Inspections were conducted at regular intervals. Detailed documentation ensured continuity from day to day. This wasn't just discipline. It was environmental design, making procrastination harder than progress. By creating decision architecture that minimized friction, Leland removed the points where hesitation usually begins. Predetermining what to work on each day eliminated the paralysis of choice that so often leads to delay. Standardized starting routines help bypass the resistance that stops most productive intentions before they even begin. Perhaps even more powerful is designing social structures that make procrastination costly. When you create accountability with specific deliverables and deadlines, delay shifts from a private indulgence with minimal consequences into a public commitment with real social costs. Just like security systems must evolve to meet new threats, your anti-procrastination systems need regular refinement as your mind adapts and creates countermeasures. Audit where procrastination currently shows up in your life and adjust your systems accordingly. Use metrics that make progress visible and procrastination transparent. Tracking progress converts vague, "I'm working on it," into concrete measurements that reveal instantly when delay has taken hold, eliminating the self-deception that so often accompanies procrastination. The truth is, procrastination doesn't persist because you lack discipline. It persists because your current systems make delay easier than progress. Design better systems, and different results become inevitable. But if you don't act, each moment of delay forges another link in the chain of procrastination, a restraint that starts almost invisibly but gradually locks down your potential. This creeping bondage explains why what begins as a small postponement so often turns into permanent limitation. Each delay weakens your motivation while simultaneously making the task ahead appear larger and more daunting. This self-reinforcing cycle builds a psychological prison more confining than any physical barrier. External challenges can often be conquered with determination, but the mental walls created by procrastination grow harder to overcome with time. The truth within this process is both sobering and liberating. The chains that hold you are self-forged, and only decisive action can break them. James J. Hill's remarkable rise from a humble clerk to a railroad empire builder shows the power of shattering these invisible restraints. Born in 1838 and losing sight in one eye at just 9 years old, Hill faced obstacles that could have easily justified delay or crushed ambition for many. Yet he understood that immediate action, no matter how small, was the only path to real progress. When he saw the potential of building rail connections between St. Paul and the Pacific Northwest, he refused to wait for perfect conditions. Despite limited funds, fierce competitors, and daunting technical challenges across the northern wilderness, Hill pressed forward. Hill moved forward with the resources he had, building the Great Northern Railway without government subsidies, even when most believed it was impossible. His success stands as proof of the freedom that lies beyond procrastination's chains. The most dangerous aspect of procrastination is how it distorts perception. Tasks left undone grow monstrous in the imagination. Opportunities postponed feel more and more out of reach. Potential unrealized begins to seem unattainable. This distortion is why breaking free requires immediate action, not more contemplation. The very chains of procrastination prevent clear judgment. Liberation starts with a single decisive act that shatters the cycle. It's less about finishing one task and more about reclaiming your power through movement. What matters most is the psychological breakthrough, the lived proof that the chains can, in fact, be broken. It's time to stop waiting and start doing. Procrastination has already stolen enough of your time, dreams, and potential. The moment you choose to act is the moment you take back control. Say goodbye to excuses, embrace discipline, and watch your life transform. Act now and claim your future. Wishing you health, happiness, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.